the Royal Scots, and the tiger, the bear, the dragon, and the Springbok. With the 1st Battalion in Ireland from 1816, the 2nd Battalion sailed for India and were soon engaged against Punjabi robber bands, and then, in 1817, against 20,000 rebellious Mahrattas at the battles of Nagpur and Mahidpur, with further actions at Talnir and Asnagore. The battle on Nagpur is unique to the regiment, being the sole King's Regiment present, with elements supporting the Sepoy brigades. The flank companies further distinguished themselves by joining a force that defeated more Mahrattas at Mahidpur, also awarded as a battle honour. At the fortress of Talnir, the Royals encountered treachery when Mahrattas surrendered but subsequently killed all but one of the delegation that entered the fortress. Swift revenge was exacted by storming the fort. The Royals won the highest approbation of the Commander-in-Chief. The Burmese invaded India in 1823, and the 2nd Battalion joined the British force there in 1825. Twice the Burmese tried to sue for peace, but the matter was settled at the Battle of Ava in 1826, the Royals being awarded the battle honour Ava. Eventually, the colours carried by the 3rd Battalion at Waterloo and by the 2nd Battalion in India and Burma came out of service and can be seen in the museum. Campaign medals showing the clasps for the battle honours Nagpur, Mahidpur and Ava are also displayed in the museum. Disputes between Russia, France and Turkey led France, Turkey and Britain to declare war on Russia. In September 1854, the 1st Battalion landed in Crimea with only 3 days' rations, officers in full dress, and soldiers without even their knapsacks. Overnight, all were soaked in a storm. Disease and weather would outnumber battle casualties. Shortly, the Royals were fighting at Alma on the approach to the Russian naval base at Sevastopol. Colonel Bell described Alma as a battle of artillery with iron hail showered from shot and shell. The Royals gained the battle honour Alma, but failure of High Command to follow up produced stalemate. At Inkerman, the Royals repulsed attacks with the loss of only one man. Other regiments lost heavily in what became known as the Soldiers' Battle. Winter brought misery. Soldiers were without greatcoats or proper boots. Rain and snow filled the trenches. Florence Nightingale arrived with her nurses. By March 1855, the 1st Battalion had lost 321 from disease, but only 7 killed in action. In April 1855, the 2nd Battalion joined the 1st for an unsuccessful attack on Sevastopol, although a second attack succeeded. The Russians withdrew after setting fire to Sevastopol. The Crimean War ended in March 1856. This was the last occasion on which the two battalions served together. Queen Victoria instituted the Victoria Cross, made from the bronze of a captured Russian gun, for exceptional valour. Private Joseph Prosser of the 2nd Battalion won our first Victoria Cross. His medals and a photograph are displayed in the museum. Mrs. Prosser was a Nightingale-trained nurse, but we do not know whether she served in the Crimea. After the war, a public investigation was held into training, equipment, administration, and medical services for the Army. In 1858, the 2nd Battalion arrived in Hong Kong. One company deployed to Canton to join an Anglo-French force that had occupied the city following the Chinese seizure of a British ship. This joint force also took part in 3 expeditions into the interior, capturing 15 Chinese guns. In May 1860, the 2nd Battalion embarked at Hong Kong with an Anglo-French expedition for the mouth of the River Pale, landing at Peitang, which was taken swiftly. The advance on Peking was blocked by the Taku forts, which had first to be reduced. The diary of Alexander Tulloch, carrying the Queen's colour, recorded, "Taking advantage of a strip of firm ground, across we went up onto the ramparts. The battalion poured in, the colonel whose horse had been shot and the colours leading. Nothing was left of the enemy but for the dead and dying." A drawing shows the storming of one of the forts. The regimental colour is in the background and is on display in the museum behind the drum major and the drums. It was the final colour of the regiment to have been carried in action. A photograph was taken inside one of the forts after the battle and is also on display in the museum. Once the forts had been taken, the way was opened to Peking, which fell soon after. The battle honours Taku Forts and Peking 1869 were awarded, as was the Second China War Medal with the clasps Taku Forts and Peking. South Africa, tensions between Britain and the Boers had increased since the 1850s. The Boers wished to form a confederation, but discovery of gold and diamonds renewed British interest, resulting in war. In September 1899, the 1st Battalion mobilised at full strength with more than 700 reservists, a feat which was recognised in the House of Commons. The 3rd Battalion, a Home Service militia battalion, was embodied at Glencorse in December 1899. In February, volunteers for South Africa were invited. All volunteered for service in South Africa. The diaries of Private Waters and Corporal Howden of the 1st Battalion record Spartan living with hard physical work in difficult circumstances. Much of the time was spent securing lines of communication. There were few occasions when the enemy engaged in set piece, so actions tended to be short. The Boer was rarely seen before opening fire. He was expert at making the British deploy and advance towards him across open ground, and even more expert at breaking contact. The veldt was perfect for the mobile Boer, who was best beaten at his own game. In pursuit, the 3rd Battalion covered 2,400 miles on foot, earning the nickname Bloody Greyhounds. Of particular utility were mounted infantry. The diary of Lieutenant Charteris is likewise instructive, including about the advance on Kimberley, Bloemfontein and Pretoria. A silver replica of a blockhouse built and manned by the 3rd Battalion, along with other items from the campaign, are displayed in the museum. Although the major campaigns in India, Crimea, China and South Africa were very significant in Britain's history, the regiment was also active elsewhere during the period misnamed the Long Peace. Between them, the 1st and 2nd Battalions also served at home, Gibraltar, Malta, Canada and Bechuanaland, and repeatedly in the West Indies and India. These deployments contributed to garrisoning the Empire. However, in Canada in 1837, the 2nd Battalion was engaged in quelling a French rebellion in the area of Montreal. While shipping from Canada to the West Indies in 1843, the second half of the battalion, aboard the troop ship Premier, foundered in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. All were saved, but had to endure winter weather until eventually rescued. Among those on board was Private Prosser, who was to win the regiment's first Victoria Cross in Crimea. A stark reminder of the hazards of disease on overseas service at this time is the epitaph on a memorial stone at Nasirabad in India, installed there in 1870, which reads, "To the memory of 3 officers, 13 non-commissioned officers, 132 men, 24 women, and 112 children of 2nd Battalion, the Royal Scots." Reforms towards the end of the period included greater all-round proficiency, the linking of regiments to geographical areas, and the wider use of tartan, popularised by Queen Victoria. We became the Royal Scots Lothian Regiment. First, the regiment wore government tartan, and then, as befitted the Royal Regiment, hunting shirt designed by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, and worn by the Queen's household